You are not coming to the wedding. The Preston family wants an exclusive guest list, and your vibe just does not fit their aesthetic. I stared at the glowing screen of my phone. The blue light illuminated my dark apartment. It was 11:45 at night. I had a half-eaten salad on my desk. My thumb was literally hovering over the Apple Pay confirmation for a $12,000 custom floral arch. I was funding my little sister's luxury vineyard wedding, and my mother just uninvited me via text message. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not throw my phone across the room. I just took a deep, shuddering breath. The silence in my apartment felt heavy. They wanted me invisible. They wanted me to be the ghost in the machine. Fine. But they forgot one massive, catastrophic detail. Every single vendor contract, from the string quartet to the organic catering, was legally bound to my corporate event company. So, I hit delete on the text message. I did not reply. Then, I opened my laptop. The screen glowed white. It was time to pull the plug on the event of the season. Let me tell you how I dismantled a $250,000 wedding from my living room couch. I am Chloe Vance. I am 29 years old. I build seven-figure corporate events in Austin, Texas. Tech summits, celebrity galas, global product launches. I manage chaos for a living. I make sure flights are booked, executives are happy, and keynote speakers walk on stage at the exact right second. But in my family, I was just the unpaid personal assistant. If you looked at my parents on social media, you would think they were the perfect upper-middle-class family. My dad was an insurance broker who played golf every Sunday. My mom was the queen of the local charity boards. And my younger sister, Harper, was the golden child. Harper is 25. She is a lifestyle influencer, a part-time model, and she has a perfectly curated life. You would never see me on their profiles. I was the girl behind the camera. I was the girl carrying the heavy bags. When Harper graduated high school, I planned the massive backyard party. I paid the caterer. I set up the sound system. When she moved into her college dorm, I was the one who rented and drove the U-Haul truck for 6 hours. When she turned 21, I booked the VIP table at a club in downtown Austin. I paid the $2,000 minimum tab. I did not even get to sit at the table because Harper needed the seats for her sorority sisters. "We will pay you back, Chloe," my mom would always say. "Things are just a little tight right now. You know how it is." They never paid me back, not once. But I kept doing it. I kept opening my wallet and giving my time. Why? Because I was desperate. I was desperate for them to look at me the way they looked at Harper. I thought that if I was useful enough, if I was perfect enough, they would finally love me. My career took off. I started my own company, Brightline Events. I was making great money. But to my family, my job was just a convenience. When Harper started dating Liam Preston, everything shifted. Liam was a pediatric surgeon. He came from old Texas money. The Preston family owned real estate, horses, and sat on the board of the local hospital. Suddenly, my parents were obsessed with appearances. Everything had to look rich. Everything had to look flawless. Then came the proposal. My phone lit up on a Tuesday evening. It was not a call. It was a flood of notifications. I was tagged in a viral video. I opened the app. It was a video of Liam proposing to Harper in a botanical garden. There were hundreds of fairy lights. A hired violinist played a romantic song. Harper wore a custom silk dress. She looked perfect. But I zoomed in on the background. Right next to the hired videographer, sitting on a tripod, was my professional camera. 3 weeks earlier, my mother had called me. She said she wanted to take up photography as a hobby. She asked to borrow my expensive backup camera and my best lenses. I packed them carefully and shipped them to her. I assumed I would be invited to whatever family event she was planning. Instead, I watched my own sister get engaged through a glowing screen. A stranger was operating my equipment. They did not invite me. They just wanted my tools. I sat on my bed, feeling completely hollow. The next day, Harper called me. She was screaming with joy. "Chloe, did you see the video? It was magical. Listen, you have to help me. I want you to plan the wedding. You are the only one I trust to make it perfect. Please, Chloe. I need you. And God help me, I said yes. I swallowed the pain. I pushed down the resentment. I told myself that this was it. This was the moment I would prove my worth. I would build her a royal wedding, and finally, I would earn my seat at the family dinner table. I went to work. I built an entire digital workspace just for her wedding. Budget trackers, vendor lists, color palettes, master timelines that were complex enough to run a military operation. Harper wanted a specific venue, Blue Ribbon Vineyards. It is a stunning historic property in the hill country. It has an oak tree that is 200 years old. It is the kind of place that books out 18 months in advance. Regular people cannot just call and get a date. But I am not regular people. I leverage my corporate connections. I called the venue director, a woman I had sent hundreds of thousands of dollars of corporate business to. I pulled a massive favor. I got Harper a Saturday date in peak wedding season. Because I booked it through my company, Brightline Events, I secured my corporate discount. But the venue required a massive deposit, $25,000, non-refundable. I called my dad. The venue needs the deposit today to hold the date, I told him. Do you want me to put it on my corporate card and you can wire me the money? Oh, sweetie, my dad said, his voice sounding nervous. The market is a little volatile right now. Can you just front it? We will pay you back after the next quarter. You are doing so well with your business anyway. I hesitated, my stomach tied in a knot, but I looked at the vision board Harper had made. I saw how happy she was. So I typed in my credit card number. Payment approved. $25,000 of my own hard-earned money, gone in a second. That was just the beginning. I used my company name to book the Michelin star caterer. I paid the $5,000 deposit for the imported flowers. I secured the luxury transportation vans. In total, I had $42,000 of my own money tied up in contracts. My name, and my company's name, was on every single legal document. My parents told me not to worry. They said they would pay for the open bar and the photographer, which they did. But I was carrying the entire infrastructure of the event. I was the foundation. The breaking point did not happen all at once. It happened slowly, like a poison. The first major red flag hit during the menu tasting, exactly 1 month before the wedding. We sat in a private, dimly lit dining room at the vineyard. It was me, Harper, Liam, my parents, and Liam's parents, the Prestons. Mrs. Preston was a woman who wore pearls to breakfast and spoke in a very quiet, very condescending tone. The waiters brought out miniature versions of braised short ribs and truffle mashed potatoes. I was taking notes on my iPad, adjusting the service timeline. Mrs. Preston took a small bite of her food. She wiped her mouth with a linen napkin, leaned toward my mother, and spoke. She did not whisper. She spoke just loud enough for the entire table to hear. It is so incredibly sweet that Harper's older sister is playing party planner for us, Mrs. Preston said. She looked at me with a tight, fake smile. Event work is such a cute little hobby. I suppose it keeps you busy. But Liam's colleagues expect a certain standard of elegance. We cannot have this looking like a high school prom. My blood turned to ice. A cute little hobby? I manage events with budgets larger than her husband's trust fund. I looked up from my iPad. I looked directly at my mother and father. I waited for them to speak up. I waited for my dad to say, "Actually, Chloe runs a highly successful corporate firm." I waited for my mom to say, "Chloe secured this venue when no one else could." My dad cleared his throat. He chuckled nervously. "Well," he said, avoiding my eyes, "Chloe is good with details. She's always very helpful. She's very convenient to have around." Convenient. Not accomplished. Not successful. Not respected. Just convenient. Harper did not say a word. She just kept eating her short rib. Liam looked a little uncomfortable, but he stayed silent too. I sat there for the rest of the dinner, feeling completely invisible. I realized in that moment that I was not a guest at this wedding. I was not a sister. I was the hired help. And the worst part was, I was paying for the privilege of serving them. 2 weeks later, the text message arrived. The text message glowed on my screen. You are not coming to the wedding. The Preston family wants an exclusive guest list, and your vibe just does not fit their aesthetic. We will send you photos. Do not make a scene. I read it once. I read it twice. A year ago, this would have destroyed me. I would have called my mother crying. I would have begged for a seat in the back row. I would have apologized for simply existing. But sitting in my dark apartment, looking at the $42,000 of debt on my master spreadsheet, something inside me just snapped. It was not a loud, angry snap. It was quiet. It was cold. It was the sound of a heavy steel door locking shut. They did not want me. They just wanted my credit card. They wanted my labor. They wanted to present a flawless, wealthy image to the Preston family. And my presence ruined their lie. I did not reply to the text. I did not shed a single tear. I opened my laptop. I logged into my company portal. It was time to show them what happens when the invisible workhorse finally stops pulling the wagon. I pulled up the blue ribbon vineyards contract. My name, Chloe Vance, sat alone on the signature line. The client was Bright Line Events, LLC. I picked up my phone and called Sarah, the venue director. It was late, but she always answered my corporate calls. Sarah, it is Chloe, I said. My voice was completely steady. I need to trigger the cancellation clause for the Vance Preston wedding on the 18th. Sarah gasped. Chloe, that is in 10 days. Are you absolutely sure? I'm completely sure, I said. The client's circumstances have changed. Please transfer the entire $25,000 deposit to my cybersecurity summit in October. Apply my corporate discount. Done, Sarah said. She did not ask further questions. In the luxury event industry, whoever signs the contract holds all the power. Next was the caterer. I called the head chef. I canceled the organic farm-to-table menu. I moved the $5,000 deposit to a holiday gala I was planning for a tech firm. Then I emailed the premium florist. Canceled. The luxury transportation vans. Canceled. The string quartet. Canceled. It took me exactly 45 minutes. In less than an hour, I legally dismantled a $250,000 wedding. I stripped away every single piece of luxury. I left them with nothing but the cheap plastic party favors my mother had bought on Amazon. I opened the family group chat on my phone. It was me, my mother, my father, and Harper. I typed my message slowly. I wanted every single word to be perfect. I received your text. I agree that my vibe does not fit your high society aesthetic. Therefore, I have removed myself and my business from this event. I have legally canceled the venue, the catering, the flowers, and the transport. The deposits have been absorbed back into my company. I hope the Prestons appreciate what you were willing to sacrifice for their approval. Good luck on Saturday. You are going to need it. I hit send. I turned my phone on silent. I placed it face down on my kitchen counter. Then I went to sleep. I slept for 8 solid hours. It was the best, most peaceful sleep of my entire life. The next morning, I made a cup of expensive coffee. I walked over to the counter. I flipped my phone over. I had 74 missed calls. I had 112 unread text messages. The bomb had detonated. The messages in the group chat were pure chaos. My mother texted first. Chloe, tell me this is a sick joke. The venue just emailed me a cancellation notice. Call me right now. 10 minutes later, her tone changed from angry to panicked. The caterer says they are fully booked for another event now. Chloe, what did you do? You are ruining your sister's life. Then my father chimed in. Chloe, you cannot do this. We signed legal contracts. You will be sued. I laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. They did not sign anything. I signed everything. I owned the paperwork. Then came Harper's message. It was a long voice note, but I read the transcription on my screen. She was hysterical. How could you do this to me? The Prestons are furious. You are just jealous because I am marrying a wealthy doctor, and you are just an event planner. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Jealous? I was a self-made business owner with zero debt. I was completely free. I did not reply to any of them. I got dressed in a sharp suit and went to my office. I had real corporate clients to deal with. I let them drown in the mess they created. By Wednesday, just 3 days before the wedding, the brutal reality of the situation finally hit my family. They could not fix it. My mother had driven out to the vineyard to beg them to reinstate the booking. But without my corporate discount, the venue quoted her the standard peak season rate, $80,000. And because it was last minute, they demanded full payment up front in a wire transfer. My parents did not have $80,000. They did not even have $20,000. That is exactly why they manipulated me into paying for it in the first place. They tried to ask Liam's parents for a loan. The Prestons flat out refused. Mrs. Preston reportedly told my mother that it was deeply embarrassing for a family to lose their venue a week before the wedding. So the perfect aesthetic they cared so much about was officially ruined. Thursday afternoon, a delivery driver knocked on my apartment door. He handed me a long white rectangular box. I opened it. Inside was a single, sad-looking white rose. Next to it was an envelope with my father's handwriting. I opened the letter. It said, "Chloe, please stop this tantrum. Family is the most important thing. We all say things we do not mean in the heat of the moment. If you fix the vendors today, we will allow you to sit at the back of the reception. We have enclosed a small token of our appreciation for your hard work." I looked inside the envelope. It was a personal check for $500. $500. I had put $42,000 on my personal credit card. I had spent 400 hours planning every microscopic detail of their dream day, and they honestly thought a single flower, $500, and a seat in the back row would buy my submission. I took the check. I ripped it into tiny, microscopic pieces. I threw the pieces in the trash, right on top of the white rose. The wedding was in exactly 48 hours. They had no luxury venue. They had no gourmet food. They had no classical music. They only had their pride. And even that was quickly crumbling into dust. Saturday arrived. The weather was beautiful. It was a perfect day for a vineyard wedding. It was a shame they were not having one. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I decided I wanted a front row seat to the season finale of my family's disaster. I got dressed in a tailored navy blue suit. I wore my favorite expensive perfume. I looked like a CEO. I looked like the woman who funded the original dream. I drove to the backup location. A mutual friend had texted me the details. It was the Lakeside Banquet Hall. It was a dusty, rundown event space located right next to a noisy highway. I parked my car and walked toward the entrance. A crooked, handwritten sign on a whiteboard read, "Preston and Vance Wedding." I walked into the lobby. The contrast was absolutely staggering. I had booked them a luxury, 200-year-old historic estate. Now, they were standing on cheap, stained carpet under harsh fluorescent lights. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old fish from the restaurant next door. There was no custom floral arch. There were just 2 sad, fake plastic trees draped in cheap white tulle. The luxury string quartet I hired was replaced by a sweaty DJ trying to untangle his microphone cables. The Preston family guests were already seated. Women in designer silk dresses and men in expensive suits looked around the room in absolute horror. They were whispering. They were judging. I stood quietly in the back corner of the room. I leaned against the wall. I crossed my arms. And I waited. The ceremony started 20 minutes late. The DJ hit a button, and the processional music blared through the cheap speakers. The sound was distorted and loud. My mother walked down the aisle first. She was wearing a very expensive designer gown, but her face was tight with stress. She forced a plastic smile at the Preston family. Then, my father walked Harper down the aisle. Harper looked beautiful in her custom dress, but her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking. She knew exactly what this room looked like. She knew her perfect aesthetic was dead. The officiant began speaking. He was a backup guy they hired at the last minute. He mispronounced Harper's name twice. He called her Heather. A baby started crying in the 3rd row. A waiter from the restaurant next door dropped a tray of glasses, and the shattering sound echoed through the entire room. It was a complete, unmitigated disaster. It was what happens when you rip out the spine of an event and try to tape it back together in 3 days. Finally, the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. The DJ played the wrong exit song. Harper and Liam turned around to walk back down the aisle. Harper forced a bright smile for the photographer. Her eyes scanned the room. And then she saw me. Harper stopped dead in her tracks. The fake smile vanished from her face. The entire procession stopped behind her. Conversations died. The room went completely silent, except for the terrible music playing from the speakers. "Chloe," Harper whispered. But in the quiet room, everyone heard it. My mother snapped her head toward the back of the room. When she saw me leaning against the wall, her face turned pale, and then it turned bright red with fury. She abandoned the procession and marched straight down the aisle toward me. Her heels clicked angrily against the cheap tile floor. "What are you doing here?" my mother hissed, keeping her voice low but venomous. "You ruined everything. You humiliated us. Get out right now." I did not move. I did not blink. "I came to see the wedding," I said calmly. My voice carried perfectly in the quiet room. "I wanted to see what kind of event you could throw when you were actually paying for it yourself." My father rushed over, pulling nervously at his tie. "Chloe, please, do not make a scene. The Prestons are already furious. We told them the vineyard had a plumbing emergency." "A plumbing emergency?" I asked loudly. I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. Suddenly, Mrs. Preston stepped out from the front row. She walked down the aisle toward us. Her husband, the prominent doctor, followed closely behind her. "Is there a problem here?" Mrs. Preston asked. Her eyes darted between me and my mother. "And who is this?" My mother froze. She looked terrified. "Oh, this is nobody," my mother stammered. "Just a former vendor who is leaving." "I'm not a vendor," I said. I stepped forward, extending my hand to Mrs. Preston. "I am Chloe Vance, Harper's older sister, the one whose aesthetic did not fit your exclusive guest list." Mrs. Preston stared at me. "Sister?" Harper told us her sister was living abroad. I looked at Harper, who was now standing a few feet away, crying silently. She had lied to them to explain my absence. "I live 20 minutes away," I said, looking directly at Liam's parents. "I am the CEO of Brightline Events. I am the person who secured the Blue Ribbon Vineyard for this wedding. I am the person who negotiated the Michelin star catering, the luxury transport, and the imported flowers." The room was so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. 200 guests were staring directly at us. Mr. Preston frowned. "You booked the vineyard? Richard told me he paid for it in cash months ago." He looked at my father. My father looked at the floor. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I opened my digital portfolio. "Here are the receipts," I said, holding the screen up for Mr. Preston to see. "I put $42,000 of my own money into this wedding. I spent 400 hours planning it. And 10 days ago, my mother texted me to say I was uninvited because I was not high class enough for your family." Mrs. Preston gasped. She looked at my mother with absolute disgust. "So?" I continued, my voice steady and completely unshaken. "I exercised my legal right as the contract holder. I canceled the vendors. I took my money back. I took my labor back. You are standing in this cheap banquet hall because my family wanted to pretend they were wealthy, and they expected me to quietly foot the bill while hiding in the shadows." I turned to look at my parents. They looked broken. The wealthy image they cared so much about was shattered into a million unfixable pieces. "You chose status over your own daughter," I told them. "You wanted to look rich for strangers more than you wanted to love your own child. Today, you got exactly what you paid for." "Ah, nothing." I looked at Harper. Her makeup was running down her face. "Congratulations on your marriage, Harper," I said softly. I hope the illusion was worth it. I did not wait for a response. I turned around and pushed open the heavy double doors of the banquet hall. I stepped out into the afternoon sun. The air felt incredibly fresh. I walked to my car. I got in, started the engine, and drove away. My hands were not shaking. I did not feel sad. For the first time in 29 years, I felt completely weightless. 3 months later, I stood on the exact same hilltop at the Blue Ribbon Vineyard. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the 200-year-old oak tree. But there was no wedding arch. Instead, there was a sleek, modern stage. I was running my corporate cybersecurity summit. My earpiece buzzed with updates from my team. Executives from all over the country were drinking expensive wine and praising the flawless execution of the event. My company made a $90,000 profit that weekend. I never spoke to my parents again. I heard through mutual friends that Liam's family was deeply embarrassed by the wedding disaster. They distanced themselves from my parents. The fake, perfect image my mother fought so hard to build was completely destroyed by her own greed. Sometimes setting a boundary means blowing up a bridge, but when the bridge is toxic, watching it burn is the best view in the world. I am Chloe Vance. I am a CEO. I am a survivor. And I am no longer available to be anyone's invisible safety net. But I have to ask you guys, what would you have done? Would you have swallowed your pride and let them take the credit? Or would you have canceled the contracts just like I did? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of cold, calculated revenge, hit that subscribe button. I have plenty more where that came from.